Hello and welcome back to the Daily Bread Bible Study. This is day 150, which means we've gone through about 40% of the Bible so far here on the Daily Bread Bible Study. We've got more to continue on, but this is for Friday, May 29th, 2020, focusing on Job 13 through 16. So we pick it up with Job, the faithful man, still enduring hardship. As such, Job wants to plead his case before God, yet his friends keep responding as if they can speak for God. Job's pronouncement to his friends is that you are not doing God's work. It says in Job chapter 13, you whitewash with lies, and in verse 4, all of you are worthless physicians. So the whitewashing with lies is because they are speaking truths that cover up the actual problem, which is conflict between him and God with all of the things that are happening. And so he calls them worthless physicians, I think in the sense that if you make a prescription that is not going to make the individual better, then that by that token it's not effective. And so they're just not They're trying to help, but they are not being very helpful in what they prescribe. And so Job is asking God and God alone to hear his case. His friends are putting themselves in the tension between Job and God, kind of without his asking. And his friends have gotten involved by, in fact, siding with God and trying to defend God upon principle. They don't know God's words that he would have for Job, and so they're trying to speculate at what God would say and defend God, not with God's own words, but with just principles about God. Now, Job knows who God is in principle. He's a faithful man, but wants acknowledgement of God's present action. So in Job 13:7, he says, will you speak falsely for God and speak deceitfully for him? Will you show partiality toward him? Will you plead the case for God? So while speaking these words are true, and these words about God are true in general, the ideals about God add no substance to his present conflict. Job says in verse 12 of chapter 13, your maxims are proverbs of ashes. Your defenses are defenses of clay. There's just no substance, right, in these ideals of the way things should be, of who God should be, right? It doesn't address the present reality of suffering that he feels is from God. And so instead, Job wants God to officially convict him of something. He really just wants to hear anything from God, saying in verse 24, why do you hide your face? He's hoping God will speak to him, and by the end of Job, we will see that God, in fact, does address him. But for now, Job 14, Job is, in this moment in time, willing for this immortal God, this one who sees all to just stop providing blessing or challenge to humans. Job 14:6 says, look away from them and desist, that they may enjoy, like laborers, their days. Job then compares humans and trees, saying that trees have a chance to blossom again, even after having their substance removed. Job thinks that humans are finished after they die and does not believe in a resurrection. So Job then claims that there is vanity in life. Humans cannot accurately judge between blessing and humbling from God. Instead, humans are left to experience the one thing in which they are certain. In Job 14:22, they feel only the pain of their own bodies and mourn only for themselves. Now, a lot could be said about this, but again, Job is just expressing his current situation, right? Feelings associated with his suffering. I should note that my impulse is just like that of his friends, to explain why he feels what he feels, or possibly explain these potential meanings about the midst of his suffering, or to go into what we can learn from his suffering as well. But ultimately, Job's wrestlings touch on our own wrestlings, right? And we can try to figure out what God is up to in our lives and try and guess. Maybe our friends can be more helpful and sympathetic than Job's friends, who come back for another round starting in chapter 15. So there in chapter 15, Eliphaz speaks again to Job, and the accusations again come against Job, saying things like this: "Your words are windy knowledge and unprofitable talk. You are doing away with the fear of the Lord," in verse 4. In verse 6, "Your own mouth condemns you, not I," says Eliphaz. Verse 8, you limit wisdom to yourself. Verse 13, you turn your spirit against God. In Job 16, one who is abominable and corrupt, referencing that Job is abominable and corrupt to God. And then verse 30, remember the wicked will not escape from darkness. So Eliphaz has this long kind of diatribe against Job. And then Eliphaz, I think, gets to his real point in verse 17. Listen to me, right? Eliphaz is wanting Job to revere his words, his intellect, his wisdom. Eliphaz thinks that he is being helpful. So why is Job being stubborn and refusing to acknowledge the wisdom of Eliphaz? For all of this, Eliphaz is viewing Job's actions as wickedness, right? Instead of being a friend to him, instead of comforting him and assuring him and saying, yes, it is hard, Eliphaz is just trying to explain the error of Job's ways. So, Job 16, we hear Job reply again to his friend Eliphaz, saying, "You all are miserable comforters." Job is looking for these gracious words for him, saying if the roles were reversed in chapter 16, verse 5, "I could encourage you with my mouth, and the solace of my lips would assuage your pain." Right? The solace of his lips assuaging his pain. The sense that when we speak gracious words to one another, when we affirm that it is hard and difficult, that suffering is real and present and painful, that acknowledgement can sometimes help, right? That's what he is looking for in this moment. There's no prescription for every situation, right? But there is the difference between trying to provide solace and trying to be right? As the phrase that's used often is, would you rather be right or in relationship, right? You can say things that are technically accurate, but they can be very unhelpful for building relationship with others. And so this is where Job and his friend Eliphaz are at. Eliphaz, his words are just not building relationship, building any comfort, building any peace for Job. And so Job also mentions the futility of letting his emotions out and holding his emotions in. In Job 16:6 it says, "If I speak, my pain is not assuaged, and if I forbear, how much of it leaves me?" Job again describes his current situation in verse 16. "My face is red with weeping, and deep darkness is on my eyelids. Though there is no violence in my hands, my prayer is pure." He even states that he is looking to heaven in the midst of the struggle, saying that his eyes pour out tears in verse 20. Or tears to God, sorry. My eyes pour out tears to God specifically. Job is looking to God. He is crying to God even. He is putting out his emotions, just laying it out there. He's being vulnerable before God and before his friends, just stating where he is at. So will his friends come around? Will they affirm where he's at? Will God respond with gracious words to what Job has to say? We will hear more about this as we continue on here in Job, starting next time.